Welcome to Jim Merritt's Indiana, another episode. We're coming to you from Bloomfield, Indiana. Not Bloomington, but Bloomfield. We're at See Purpose, which is a recovery center for people suffering from addiction. I think you know in my career, the last 5 years or so, is I've worked on lots of different projects that have dealt with opioid recovery. Back in 2017, we were able to have a program in Fort Wayne that was paid for by the state government and as well as matching funds that said to the judges up there, if you've seen my previous podcasts, it's about either a redemption house where you're in a group home, these are women, or a jail cell. And the judges, the circuit court judge up there, Judge Wendy Davis, and the superior courts, they would have an option for non-violent offenders to be in a situation where they can get well instead of being incarcerated. We also had a program in Westchester where ladies who might have children or could be pregnant are in a situation where they just don't know where to turn. And that is a Volunteers of America project. We've duplicated that in Indianapolis, we've duplicated that in Columbus. And what the goal of everything is survival and recovery. And we're here today at See Purpose to talk about a different way to have a comprehensive care. It really is important that we have comprehensive programs, and so that's why we're here today, because we don't have enough, that many in the state of Indiana. More than likely, and you've heard me say this before, more than likely kids who are getting in trouble with drugs, with opiates, or with alcohol, they're shipped to Florida, or they're shipped to California, or Oregon, or Arizona. And it's so much more important for those children to have a place in the state of Indiana where they can go and get well. And we are in Bloomfield. Evan and Eric, why don't you talk a little bit? First of all, why See Purpose? What is with the name? You've made a name for yourself out in California, and why Indiana?
Yeah.
Evan.
Yeah. Thanks, Jim. Thanks for having us on this podcast, and I appreciate your time and coming out here. Well, first, I think the most important thing is to really tell you guys who we are, right? Because we're coming from out of state. We're coming to a state that may not be as familiar with us as California is. And so, Eric and I have been working together, well, for the better half, mostly more than 8 years, really. And we started off doing interventions together. What ended up happening is it brought us out to Indiana several times to do interventions. And what we were finding in Indiana...
What happens in an intervention? Tell me about that.
We work
That's
a lot.
really the start.
Sure. We work a lot with the families in the pre-intervention.
With someone suffering from addiction.
Yep, somebody suffering from addiction.
Or they don't know they are.
Yep, or denial.
Yes.
People that are in denial from addiction, the families reach out to us for help. They want their loved one to get into treatment. And then we help them kind of create a plan. It's really a love first approach where we educate the family members on different aspects of what this addiction dis-ease, I'll call it a dis-ease because it's a kind of a dysfunction in the family system. And we educate them on enabling codependency, because that's really what the families struggle with when it comes to having a loved one that suffers from some type of substance use disorder. And then we set up an intervention plan. We do some pre-intervention work, where we create a genogram of the family system, which gives us like a bird's eye view of the family system from 3 generations back. And then we schedule a time to go out to wherever we're going and meet with the families in person, and then set up the actual intervention, and then execute it and take that person to treatment. So we started doing that in Indiana, and what we were finding in that process was that there were very few resources in Indiana, and even more so, resources that could actually treat the whole person. And so we were finding ourselves bringing them out to Utah, bringing them to California, as you mentioned, And what that did was it gave the person a fair shot at recovery, but it seriously diminished the family involvement in the treatment process. And the family involvement in anybody's treatment process is so pertinent to the overall picture that that piece was missing. And we were finding that people that were from Indiana that moved to California for treatment ended up staying in California, and the families still did not go through the help that they needed to start the healing on themselves. Anytime a person leaves treatment and goes back into that family system where the family hasn't started to heal, they usually end up relapsing and going back through that cycle. So we wanted to do this.
And that's right where, when they relapse, their tolerance is down. And so real problems, death sometimes comes to the fore.
Exactly.
And we're at a beautiful facility here. I understand the Cook family from Bloomington has been helpful with this place. And what a great place to get well. Talk a little bit about this place and how long you've been here and what your plans are for the facility.
We found this place in November, and we met the Cooks, and they have been great. And we've done a lot of renovating, painting, and upkeeping of the property because we went through the winter storm, and there's been a lot of work that we've had to do here in order to give people the most peace and comfort while they're here, in order to be able to work on their inner selves, and pretty much it.
Well, I want to, and those out in podcast land and Jim Merritt's Indiana land, they know that I use phrases like addiction is an illness, not a character flaw, and that good positive mental health is good positive physical health. Talk a little bit about all the different services that you're going to offer here.
That's a good question. So I think that's what really makes us unique. Especially, I mean, even in California, our outpatient California is pretty unique to the treatment world. And bringing that kind of philosophy and approach out into Indiana is even more unique, I think. Our philosophy and approach really stems from a foundation that people deserve a choice in their recovery. And the idea that people who make that choice and are given viable options to sustain recovery, because it's their choice, they're going to sustain it longer and they're going to defend the status quo of their recovery, right? And so what we did in California, which we're bringing out here, was we developed the Emotional Intelligence and Mindfulness Program with a heavy focus on trauma treatment, a heavy focus and approach. All of our theoretical approaches are based off of mindfulness practices. So mindfulness-based stress reduction, mindfulness-based relapse prevention, EMDR therapy, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, which is a trauma treatment, and it's been really effective for a lot of people. So if you will, kind of think of this as a retreat experience where somebody is going to be supervised medically in the detoxification process. We have a great medical team that we have just brought on. Our medical director is phenomenal, and they're going to be safe, comfortable, they'll be treated with dignity and respect in our detox, and then when they make the transition into the residential portion of their stay, that will become more of a retreat because of all the mindfulness practices, the trauma therapies that are going to be taking place. It's really beautiful.
Well, one of the parts of addiction that I've always talked about is many people who are suffering from addiction have been turned out by their family, or something has gone on where they're lost. And out in rural Indiana, it's almost like people are suffering from addiction because of boredom and they don't have anything to do. Talk about See Purpose and why you named it See Purpose.
Well, I think that the biggest part of why we came up with See Purpose is because most people struggling with addiction and alcoholism usually have or lack purpose. And what we wanted to do was help people find their purpose. And I believe personally that when someone finds purpose, they find gratitude and they are able to stand on their own feet and learn to walk again. Instead of having families and other people outside continue to enable that. And that's the reason why what everyone was talking about earlier of the family unit being so important of being part of the work, in order to get that person to actually find their purpose and go out live their best life.
I think also too is that, you know, when people deal with or experience some type of substance use disorder or addiction, right, they also lose their purpose, right? And so we're hoping that people can come here, rest, rejuvenate, and in that process find their purpose.
And how many people could be served here at one time?
So we have 5 beds in detox and then 10 beds in the residential portion. So a total of 15 people would be our max capacity.
Okay. Well, it's, as I said, we don't have a whole lot of continuum of care. We don't have comprehensive approaches such as this. Last word, I'm very, very pleased that you're going down this track, because through all my work, we need different options, different ways. People get well in different scenarios. And in Bloomfield, Indiana, Bloomington, Indiana, Indianapolis, South Bend, just give me one last thing that maybe the podcast people can remember our podcast from, and what the amazing whys, what is the goal of See Purpose?
Just to encourage and ignite some healing in this local community. I think Indiana as a whole has been struggling for such a long time, and I think that there have been so many people that need help. Addictions or substance use disorders, however you want to refer to them, have evolved so much in so many different ways, and treatment needs to evolve with it. If treatment doesn't evolve with the substance use disorders, then we're going to continue to chase our tails. We're going to continue to bang our heads up against the walls and try to figure out how to work this out. It's not going to work. So the treatment goal for us is to begin that healing process and to show people that there are different paths to recovery, and that if you're struggling, you can change your life.
Okay. Well, I appreciate being at See Purpose, and Evan and Eric. This is a wonderful setting. It is very, very certain to me that we're going to see people graduate from here. Those 15 people times. Southwest Indiana is going to be well served by See Purpose, and I'm so happy that you're watching another episode of Jim Merritt's Indiana.